Today's flight is going to take us from Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport in Broomfield, Colorado to Cheyenne Regional Airport in Cheyenne, Wyoming. The main purpose of this video is to demonstrate the capabilities of ForeFlight. In this case, we're using an iPad Air, but ForeFlight coupled with FSX. The program I'm using to make that connection between the two is a freeware program called Flight Sim GPS. There are other programs available out there which are more powerful in some areas, and it's just a matter of which piece of software you want to use. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into ForeFlight and the planning within ForeFlight. You can see right now, I've just got a simple VFR sectional chart loaded. The blinking blue dot indicates our location, and you can see across the bottom that we are connected to Microsoft Flight Sim with a 1 meter accuracy, and our GPS altitude is right in there as well, current lat long, etc. So we'll begin by entering in our flight plan. Pretty simple to do that. We're going to be departing KBJC, and then we'll pick up the BJC VOR to connect us to Victor 81 and Lesed, and finally the Cheyenne Airport. So we just simply type that in. There are ways we can look to see if there are other routes that have been filed for this particular trip. There are some. Gil VOR, Victor 89 Cheyenne, those routes are certainly viable. There's a NIWAT, Victor 575, Victor 81. These are all, of course, options that we have. We're going to pick more of a direct route. We're not flying online. We're not flying with ATC in this case. So basically just a right turn out, join Victor 81, and then up to Cheyenne. So let's go ahead and give a quick scan to the route here. The other thing that we want to take into consideration, because we will be flying an IFR flight in this case, is our MEA across the airway, which in this case, Victor 81 is 8,000 feet MEA, and then up here toward Cheyenne, it does bump up to a 9,000 foot MEA. So in that case, we just want to verify that we do have a 9,000 foot altitude in here, and we do. So we will clear our MEA, and then we can see that we have a nice little tailwind there too. 36 minutes, 6 gallons, based on the performance metrics that we've put in here, which is about a 10 gallon per hour burn. Should be a little bit less than that in actuality, but that's a pretty good measuring point or rule of thumb to go by. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and fire up the sim. The other thing we want to do here is to load our airport diagram so we can see where we're going to be taxiing. And we can go ahead and do that here. Let's overlay this on the map. Georeference charts with the professional version of ForeFlight, which you're running here. You can see we're just outside of the hangars on the east side of the airport. Should give us a quick taxi down to runway 29 right, and we will depart from there. So we'll go ahead and get the aircraft going, get things started up, and rejoin here momentarily. All right, we're in the aircraft now. We have performed a walk around. We've got a little over 7 quarts of oil, which should be fine. We've got around 20 gallons in each wing of fuel, which is certainly more than enough, especially at 10 gallons an hour. That gives us 4 hours of endurance. And as I showed you a minute ago, we're only expecting to use 6 gallons on the way up to Cheyenne. So we should be pretty good. Go ahead and do the engine start here. So run the before starting engine checklist. The exterior pre-flight is complete. The Hobbs meter tack time we're not terribly concerned about in this case, but we would note that. Seat belts, shoulder harnesses we'll say are adjusted and locked. Go ahead and shut the door as well while we're at it. Radios and electric equipment is off, and the brakes, we're using the parking brake, and just confirm the parking brake is now set. Flaps are up, magnetic compass shows about the right, actually it shows right on, which is good. No precession has occurred, so we're good there. All right, so moving on to the starting engine checklist. The parking brakes are set. Fuel selector, we're going to be on the left tank here for start. Radio master switch is off, and carburetor heat is cold. Go ahead and hide the yoke. Carburetor heat is all the way in, which is cold. Cold start checklist. Make sure it goes all the way forward. Throttle wheel open, just a crack there. Rotating beacon comes on. We'll turn the fuel pump on, as well as some fuel into the cylinders here with the primer. Give it 3 pumps here. It's been sitting cold for a few minutes. Okay. Master switch can come on now. And we'll go to the both position on this particular aircraft. We can start in the both position. Some Cherokees are different, where you would start on the left mag. In this case, it's perfectly okay to start on both the way that A2A has modeled it. So go ahead and look around here, make sure that our propeller area is clear. It appears that it is. Windows are starting to fog up a little bit. We can go ahead and make sure we've got enough cabin ventilation. Clear prop. And go ahead and get that propeller started. So the starter button. And she's going. Go ahead and give it a quick check, make sure our oil pressure is coming up, and make sure that we're idling around 1,000 RPMs there, which we are. We can turn our fuel pump off and avionics master on in no particular order. And we'll get our GPS going as well. Okay, things are cooling off nicely. Parking brake's going to be released, and we can go ahead and shut our storm window. We'll go ahead and begin our taxi here. Roll forward just a little bit, check, make sure the brakes work, and they do. Cleared right, cleared left. We are taxiing runway 29 or right, so it's going to be a left turn followed by another left turn. And you can see as we start to taxi, the georeferencing on the charts does follow our position. Okay, ordinarily we would have, of course, taken the time to grab the weather, to grab the ATIS in this case, but courtesy of Active Sky, we have the latest weather showing that the winds are 120 at 3, and clear skies, temperature 2982. Okay, we're stopped into the wind here. There are a couple things that I did during the taxi that just in interest of saving time. One of them is to enter the flight plan, which in this case, if we just review our waypoints along Victor 81, it's going to be a right turn to intercept. Our first waypoint along Victor 81 is indicated as Laporte, then up to Weiser, Benny, Lesed, and then we'll shoot the DME arc to runway 27 at Cheyenne. So that's all programmed in. Just give it a quick look here. Even the ILS approach we have programmed in. We'll activate it once we get up to that point. But that's there, and if we scroll out, we can see that looks about what we were expecting, and that's it. And that matches what we're showing in ForeFlight. So we'll go ahead and do the run-up. The other thing that I did while we were taxiing was to lean the mixture. We are at a high-altitude airport here, so of course we don't want to foul the plugs, running pretty lean, which the A2A Cherokee does require that. It does like to foul the plugs, in my experience at least. pretty easily. So we'll go ahead and do our engine run up. We're stopped in the wind. Brakes are going to be on them manually. We're going to run up the engine here to 2,000 RPM or thereabouts. Okay, aircraft is set up for departure. We'll just need to confirm a couple of last takeoff items here before we go on our takeoff checklist. Otherwise, we're just going to be a normal takeoff from runway 29 right, do a right turn out, intercept the 001 radial from the Jeffco VOR, and track that north, and that should match up with our flight plan in the Garmin as well as on ForeFlight. So with that, we can run the takeoff checklist. Fuel, we're on the left tank. That's fine for now. We had a pretty short taxi. Turn on the fuel pump. Fuel pump's on. We'll turn on our landing light as well. Check our engine gauges. Everything's still looking happy. Trim is set neutral. I'll set it just a little bit nose up for the takeoff. And our mixture is set. Carburetor heat is off, so we are ready for takeoff. Taxi up to runway 29 right. And I am going to zoom ForeFlight out a bit so that we have the situational awareness as we move up to the runway here and as we depart. Downwind looks clear, base looks clear, and final looks clear. Entering the active runway now. We'll get the alert on ForeFlight indicating that we're approaching the runway, and then as we roll onto the runway, we get the alert that we are entering the runway. Quick little swing around there. Brakes are just a little touchy. Okay, we have a little bit of a left crosswind here, so we'll counter for that with aileron. Airspeed's alive. Engine's in the green. Hazard advisor is activated over 30 knots. $60 knots. Rotate. Pops into the air on a nice crisp day. And we'll pitch for our BY, which is going to be 85 knots today. See, ForeFlight has now come alive. It's showing hazard advisor, which is the colors. We have antennas, obstacles on the ground, as well as terrain lit up on the screen for ForeFlight. Right up now, we can go ahead and do our right turn. And since we haven't come across that radial quite yet, a shallow one. It's coming in now, so we're going to continue that on around. We're shooting for 9,000 feet, 6,500 climbing right now, and we're just coming up to intercept that outbound radial. Pushing for 85 knots. Establish our outbound radial. And from this point, you can see now that ForeFlight has activated in magenta the leg that we are flying. If we scroll out a little bit, you can see that the remaining legs are in blue. Some Bumps here on the way up. That's part of the game. Okay, so at this point, we'll just let the sim and ForeFlight do its thing. We'll climb up to our cruise altitude, 9,000 feet, and continue on course and check in once we get closer to Cheyenne. Okay, we just crossed over Binney. We're on our way up to Lesed, and we're currently at 9,000 feet. I did change over once we reached our halfway point, which was about at the LaPorte intersection. I did change over to the Cheyenne Vortac. We're tracking that now. That's why you'll see we're actually not using the GPS for primary navigation. We're using VOR 1 right now. And so once we get to Lesed, we will go ahead and initiate the approach. In fact, we could go ahead and use the GPS as guidance right now. Activate the approach. And so the GPS is going to show us the arc as well as the corresponding waypoints along the way. We're coming up now on Lesed. We'll descend 7,900 is what it says here, so we can descend to that altitude. We'll make the turn here in just a moment. Alright, so you'll be with us here for the approach. From Lesed, we want to again maintain the 15 DME arc for Cheyenne. To go. So we're at 17 DME down here now. And a half. Pretty good spot to start our turn. Disconnect the autopilot. Start our right turn now. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use the turn 10, twist 10 method. So at this point, we're going to turn 90 degrees. Watching that DME down there, we're at 15.6 right now. Want to make sure that stays around 15. Pretty close. So the first part of this arc, we turn 90 degrees. We were inbound on a 001, so we'll be about 090. Descend down to 7,900. 15.1 DME, not bad. So that was our turn 10. And we need this set up for about a 1.69er. Explain that here in just a minute. Okay, 1.69er. So we're on 090 heading. We're at 15 DME exactly. We know that the wind is out at the south here, so we actually might want to be on the right side of this, heading just a little bit. And when our needle centers, we'll know that we are crossing the 1.69er outbound radial from the Cheyenne Vortac, which is just about ready to center. And that will be our indication then that, there it goes. Turn 10, so we'll turn 10 degrees to the left and we'll twist 10. So that's going to be 1.59er. We'll do 1.60 just to make things easy on us. And we want about a 0.80 heading. And again, just keeping in mind the effect of the wind. We've got a wind coming out of the south. And we're watching that altitude coming up on 7,900. So 15.2 DME. Guess we don't need quite as much correction there as built into it with our altitude. And here comes our radial sweeping across. Turn another 10. What we want to do is just to kind of get an idea of how this is playing out. So we're actually going to turn a little bit more than 10. Still going to twist 10. We're on 150. Let's try a little more than 060. See where that works out. So you've noticed that our DME has crept back just a little bit. And if you're watching on ForeFlight here, you see that our arc looks pretty decent. Okay, as we're starting to get a little bit closer here, we can see that lead radial. VOR2 just starting to move ever so slightly. And I have let that wind keep pushing me. My correction didn't do a whole lot. In fact, we're drifting out a little bit further, so let's cut that in a little bit more to the left here as VOR1 centers 110, and now we've dialed in 100. Our lead radial is 104. So as soon as we cross that, we'll start our turn inbound for a 265 inbound course. So since we have our lead radial doing the work for us now on VOR2, we can set this, and we'll want to flip-flop and of course identify 265. And as I mentioned, a lot of stuff starts happening here pretty quickly. Where, of course, we want to have a good briefing on the approach, have a pretty good idea of what we're shooting. Get a little bit of that on the way in. Okay, there's our lead radial now. Start swinging around here, and you can we're backing everything up with the Garmin right now. Look at the profile here. We're going to maintain this 7,800 until we get to the horse outer marker. And you can see what I mentioned before. There's a lot of space out here, so I'm not terribly concerned about taking kind of a intermediate heading here. In fact, we can run that until our localizer needle starts moving. Garmin's enunciating our turn coming up here in 8 seconds, 7 seconds. The localizer needle is moving in. Continue on around 265 heading. Looks like we're going to have a little bit of a the winds here, a little bit of a headwind. So that's not going to affect us too much, 4 knots. ForeFlight showing that we're pretty much on it now. Alright, localizer needle is centering. Got the horse outer marker in our ADF. We also have it cross-checking with the 119er radial off the Cheyenne Vortex. Looks like we've got a little bit more wind here, picked up 6 knots. Quartering headwind, which isn't going to hurt us too bad in trying to line things up, but of course we need to be vigilant of it. So, coming up on horse here, let's go ahead and check the profile view. We know that from there we can descend down to a straight-in ILS minimum of 6,321 feet, which is going to be 200 feet off of the deck. Certainly don't have any visibility problems, any ceiling problems today, so that should not be an issue. It's one of those things where we're hand flying, we're keeping up our scan, we're watching needles move, manipulating ForeFlight. As I mentioned before, there's a lot that requires your attention, a lot going on. We're watching our altitude. That's the other thing. Bumped up here, 150 feet. Every now and then while the simulator loads textures, we get a little bit of a bump in our position. I like to say that's natural. I guess that's what happens. It's part of the deal here. We've already done our P-Gump checklist. Sort of neurotic about these things, but I do like to just confirm, run through it several times. Fuel pump's on. Fuel selector, we're on the right tank, we'll leave it there. Landing light is on. And the localizer and the glide slope are alive. And just confirming our altitudes, our missed approach. For our missed approach, we're going to climb 6,700, then a right turn, up to 8,000, direct to Cheyenne Vortex, and we'll hold from there. Don't expect that unless there's an aircraft on the runway or a reason to terminate the approach, but otherwise we'll plan to go down to 6,321 feet. Again, this is where scan comes in critical. You'll see I'm doing it here. Turbulence, winds, everything affects it. So we want to make sure that we're at that 7,800 feet at horse. We have the things that allow us to make sure that cross-checking our position. ADF needle starting to swing. Our BOR2 is centered on that outbound radial from the Cheyenne Vortex. We just crossed it there. Now we can start our final approach segment. Again, on down, 6,321 feet is what we're looking for. Gears down mixture is where it needs to be. Landing lights on. Altimeter is set. And we're pretty high here, as you can see on the glide slope, but we'll drop down no problem. Not too concerned about that way out here. Let's zoom in on our ForeFlight map. A few bumps kicking us around here pretty good. In 7 knots now, quartering headwind, 7 knots. 63.21 is what we're looking for. I've got about 1,000 to go. We're on localizer, still above glide slope. Speed's okay. We're a ways out. We'll start to slow down here as we catch up with the glide slope. It's starting to come up, so we'll put in the first notch of flaps, add some power. If we were IMC, you wouldn't be able to see that getting up the first red light there. It's not terribly exciting to shoot this approach in IMC. 200 to go, so we'll get to minimums. On glide slope on localizer. Speed's a little fast. We'll pull that back. Pretty good otherwise. Got a few bumps here. There's minimum 63.21, and there's the runway. Add in the last 2 notches of flaps here. For final, gears down, fuel pumps on, make sure it's good. 80 knots, a bit quick, and we'll pull that back. That's what happens when you're quick on your approach. A little bit of balloon there. But we are down and we are safe. Another landing that we can walk away from. Roll out here. And that does it. Hope you learned something about the integration that is capable between ForeFlight and FSX. It's a great training tool, especially when coupled with a very capable aircraft like the A2A Cherokee. Makes a really great combination to learn both procedures, IFR procedures, how to use ForeFlight, all of those things that are good to learn in the comfort of a sim. So thanks for watching, appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.